Revenge with Karen. The only sound in the server room that night was the low whir of cooling fans and the faint buzz of fluorescent lights, a sterile hum that had become Miranda's lullaby for the past 6 years. She stared at the deployment log, her half-empty thermos of stale chamomile tea perched on a tower of half-deprecated documentation. Line after line of output scrolled in front of her eyes. And then, there it was. A new deployment tag. Skip backup check equals true. He didn't scream, didn't flinch, just blinked twice and stared harder. Because if she was seeing this right, and she was, this flag would bypass the critical backup handshake she'd built after the great ransomware debacle of 2022. The one that had quietly saved their asses without anyone ever knowing. The same one she'd been told was too legacy by a man who once called JavaScript a server language. God help them. This wasn't paranoia. This was sabotage dressed in tech lingo lipstick. She clicked into the build schema, double-checking dependencies. No backup trigger call, no hook to the restore verification chain, and the pipeline signature, approved, timestamped, pushed, live. She let out a slow, bitter laugh, not the haha kind. The kind you exhale when you realize the company holiday mug you just drank from might be your goodbye gift. And hey, it's 97% of y'all are somehow listening to these stories without subscribing. Maybe hit that button. A like goes a long way too. Keeps the team caffeinated, petty, and very motivated to keep digging up stories like this one. Back to the mess. The culprit was easy to trace. VP Operations, Bradley with a Y. Corporate hired him 3 months ago after a 4-slide pitch deck and a reference from someone's fraternity brother. Called himself a system optimizer. But Miranda had seen him struggle to log into his SSO portal twice in 1 week. His solution to everything was, just push it and we'll iterate. Miranda, meanwhile, was the one who built the flow, quietly, methodically, over too many Red Bulls and Sunday nights. She was the kind of engineer who still ran dry runs on backups manually because she didn't trust cron jobs alone, kind who kept 3 versions of rollback scripts just in case a vendor changed an API without warning. The kind who knew that when everything seems fine, it's probably already burning under the hood. She opened a new branch in the repo. Not to fix the mess, no, not yet. She just wanted to see if anyone else had noticed the change. Commits showed one author, Bradley. Merge request marked urgent prod hotfix. No comments, no review. She sat back, blinking at the ceiling tiles. This wasn't incompetence anymore. This was negligence, the dangerous kind. The kind that breaks companies and ruins careers. And Miranda had one big problem. She was the only one who even knew it was happening. Because somewhere between last quarter's layoffs and the endless reorgs, she'd become invisible. A name in a Jira board, a Slack status that always read working. She could already hear it, the condescension, the brush off. Patch it in next sprint. Did you file a ticket? This isn't the hill to die on. She'd heard every corporate hymn in the gaslight gospel. But Miranda didn't do drama. She did documentation. And unlike the executive team, she played long games. The backup system she built wasn't just software, it was a deadman's switch. One she never told anyone how to activate. And now she had to decide if she was going to pull it. Sun was starting to bleed into the office blinds by the time Miranda confirmed what she already suspected in her bones. The backup wouldn't fire. Not on its own. Not after this new rollout. It was 6:42 a.m., and she'd been there all night, running permutations in her sandbox, injecting fake data and crash variables like a digital sadist. Every single scenario ended the same. No trigger, no archive, no fallback. Just blank logs and a cheery little status message saying, deployment successful. She dug through her old notes, still scrawled in ink on legal pads like some kind of pre-apocalyptic monk. Back in early 2023, after a weekend ransomware infection had crawled through a subcontractor's VPN tunnel and nearly swallowed the finance department whole, Miranda had added one extra layer of protection, a manual trigger step in the backup flow. Hidden. Silent. Root level, required physical access and her signature key file. Management never noticed. Of course they didn't, because the next all hands was about leveraging automation and AI. And while they bragged about productivity graphs, Miranda built the only real insurance policy this company had ever owned. Now it was gone. Not technically, her code was still there. But the new deployment skipped it entirely. It was like bolting new tires to a car and forgetting to connect the brakes. By 8:12 a.m., she was in the VP's office. Bradley with a Y was already halfway through a sad protein bar and scanning emails on his phone with the kind of detached arrogance only someone 3 weeks into a six-figure salary could manage. "Hey, got a minute?" she asked, voice calm but stretched tight at the seams. "Shoot," he said, not looking up. She took a breath. "I stayed late last night. Something's wrong with the new schema. There's no call to the backup trigger. If the update crashes, we won't have clean rollback points." He glanced up, blinked once, then looked back at his phone. "Didn't QA catch that? There's nothing to catch. It was a manual-only step. I never documented it because it was a failsafe. You removed that and were flying blind." That got his attention. Barely. Put the phone down and leaned back in his $1,300 ergonomic chair like he was watching a commercial he didn't quite believe. "We've already demoed this for stakeholders," he said, waving vaguely toward the glass walls. "We're past the point of rewrites." Miranda felt something inside her coil. "Bradley, if this goes live and something fails, Miranda," he cut in, raising a palm like he was blessing her with ignorance. "We're streamlining legacy systems. That means cutting redundancies. If your backups were so important, they'd be in the CI/CD path, but they're not. So unless you've got a ticket from QA or DevSec, this is dead weight. Let it go. Let it go." That phrase had been weaponized more times in her life than she could count. From managers, from boyfriends, from her own reflection some nights. But she didn't let things go. She debugged them. She rebuilt them. She owned them. Miranda stood there for 3 more seconds, long enough to let her silence coat the air like paint primer. Then she turned and walked out. No slammed doors, no speeches, just quiet rage soaked into every step. Back at her desk, she opened up her terminal, pulled up the log files, took screenshots of every broken chain, every bypassed hook. She wrote a private memo, not for them, for her, timestamped. Archived, as she attached the memo to a ticket labeled priority. Critical, she already knew what they'd do with it. They'd close it, disregard it, maybe even delete it. But that was fine. Because she also attached something else, a hash key, one that only she could verify. One tied directly to the manual backup trigger sitting dormant on a server she'd hidden under a deliberately misnamed container, Temp Alpha Dustbin. Miranda didn't need them to listen, needed them to walk straight into the fire they built. And thanks to Bradley's brilliance, that ignition switch was now live. By noon, Miranda had every byte of proof lined up like bullets in a digital revolver. She wrote it all up, not in Slack, not in Confluence, not on some shared Google Doc that would mysteriously fail to load in a few hours, but in a plain text email, signed, sealed, and timestamped. Sent straight to Ellen Myers, Senior Director of Infrastructure, one of the last human beings in the building who still respected root access and drank her coffee black. Subject: urgent, deployment risks, backup trigger dependency, requesting 48H delay, no caps lock panic. No doomsday howling. Just cold facts, test case logs, and an annotated flowchart with one blood-red arrow pointing at the exact junction where everything would go straight to hell. She didn't ask for miracles, just 48 hours. 2 days to test, patch, reinstate the failsafe. She clicked send, leaned back, and watched the cursor blink in her terminal like a heartbeat on life support. At 12:14 p.m., she got the reply, but not from Ellen. It was from Bradley's executive admin, one of those surgically polite messages that read like it had been passed through 6 layers of PR before being typed. "Hi Miranda, thanks for raising this concern. VP Operations, this item has been reviewed and deemed non-blocking for launch. Please refrain from escalating outside chain of command without alignment. Moving forward, remember to route feedback through proper channels. Appreciate your focus. Warmly, Amanda." She reread the words non-blocking like they were a diagnosis for a terminal illness she wasn't allowed to treat. She scrolled down. Her entire ticket had been closed in the deployment system. Status not reproducible. Timestamp 12:09 p.m. 5 minutes after her email was sent, she checked the access logs. No one had even viewed the attached test case folder. She stared at her screen until her vision doubled, then laughed, just once. That low, feral laugh again. Like a warning siren no one could hear but her. Undermining alignment. Remember your pay grade. She'd once been told she was too technical to be strategic. Another manager said she needed to work on her executive presence, whatever the hell that meant. She used to let those comments fester in her gut. Not anymore. Now she wore them like armor, because being underestimated was the last bit of leverage she had left. Miranda didn't argue. She didn't rage. She just opened a new encrypted Notion board under her personal email. Title, Postmortem, 7/23 rollout failure predicted. She pasted every log, every screenshot, every version diff. She added calendar screenshots, Slack threads, timestamped email headers, even recorded a screen capture of the triggerless build script being pushed live. No commentary, just silence and code. Then she wrote one line at the top: ignored warnings are just future regrets wearing camouflage. At 3:01 p.m., she watched as the company-wide Slack channel lit up with deployment celebration gifs. Same 3 people who hadn't looked at a single line of her analysis were clapping like they'd split the atom. Bradley posted a photo of himself holding a whiskey tumbler with the caption, "Smoothest launch all year. Teamwork paranoia," that word again. Paranoia, like caution was a character flaw, like testing was a mental illness. She shut her laptop, not gently. Somewhere in the server rack behind her, a tiny LED blinked in rhythm with her pulse. Her manual trigger script, still dormant, still invisible, but not forever. The badge scanner blinked red, not yellow, not error, red, as in access denied, as in you no longer exist here. Miranda stood frozen at the turnstile, holding her coffee in one hand, the strap of her laptop bag in the other. The security guard, fresh out of college and sheepish as hell, looked up from his phone like she'd just interrupted his Spotify playlist. Hey, Miranda, you might want to check with HR. Wasn't even 9 a.m. She took the long walk down the polished hallway in a daze, her sneakers muffled on the over-vacuumed carpet, passing 2 interns laughing over someone's dog meme in Slack. The hallway smelled like someone microwaved coconut oatmeal and regret. At the end of it, HR. No lights were on in the room, just the glow of a laptop and a sad little potted plant drooping like it knew what was coming. The HR rep, woman named Kaylee with positive energy tattooed across her eyebrows, barely made eye contact. "Hey Miranda, so, we're doing a bit of restructuring, and unfortunately today is your last day with the company. This is your exit packet, and we've already begun the deactivation process." Deactivation process, like she was a subscription. "No one mentioned this in yesterday's stand-up," Miranda said. Her voice didn't shake. It didn't even rise. It was just tired. "Oh, it was finalized last night," Kaylee chirped, sliding the manila envelope across the desk like it was a party favor. "We're prioritizing agility and cross-functional autonomy moving forward." Words that meant nothing. Buzzword soup. She opened the envelope. Severance check, NDA, standard boilerplate. She could practically recite it from memory. "Can I at least go to my desk?" "Actually, security's already boxed up your things. You'll find them at the front desk." It was the moment Miranda felt it, her dignity peeling off like sunburnt skin. They hadn't even given her a chance to delete her cookies. As she turned to leave, the door opened behind her. Bradley, of course, wearing sneakers that cost more than her rent and sipping from a protein shake like it held the secrets to immortality. He gave her a nod, casual as you please. "Hey Miranda, nothing personal, you're just a technician. And the system basically runs itself now." He said it like he was complimenting her. Like being automated out of existence was something she should be proud of. She didn't speak, didn't spit, didn't scream, just walked past him, every step echoing like a bullet casing. At the front desk, her belongings were in a sad cardboard box. No name, just a yellow sticky note that said, "Engineer terminated." She lifted the lid. Laptop charger, her backup SSD, a copy of clean code. And at the very bottom, folded like a forgotten napkin, her old sticky note from 2023, "Trust no one, test everything." She looked over her shoulder one last time. Through the glass wall of the deployment room, she could see the new intern fumbling with the Jenkins console. Installing a utility script Miranda had deprecated months ago after discovering it clashed with their backup retention logic. She'd flagged it, documented it, replaced it, brought it back like resurrecting a cursed tombstone. She walked out into the parking lot, the Ohio air hitting her lungs like a slap. Her phone buzzed once. Probably a calendar reminder she'd forgotten to cancel. She didn't check it. She just got in the car, turned the ignition, and drove. No destination, no job, no badge. But somewhere, under 3 layers of encryption and 1 obsolete server tag, her trigger script sat dormant, silent, and waiting. Parked her car at the edge of the state forest, killed the engine, and tossed her phone into the glove box like it owed her money. No signal out here, no Slack pings, no meeting invites, just the rustle of wind through trees and the hum of distant crickets sounding like dial-up from another dimension. Miranda hiked for an hour until the static of civilization melted off her skin. set up camp by a cold creek, built a fire with mechanical precision. She'd done this before, after her dad died, after a brutal breakup, after layoffs that smelled like team optimization. Disappearing wasn't escape, it was calibration. Out here, the only system that needed managing was the one keeping her warm and fed. She didn't think about Jenkins or Bradley or who was going to trip over her absence first. She thought about trout. She thought about silence. She thought about how pine needles sounded like code being erased from a whiteboard. While she boiled instant noodles over the flame on Sunday night, back in that hermetically sealed tech campus, someone hit deploy to production. The build passed. The dashboard lit green. The Slack channel exploded with clapping gifs and hell yeahs and a gif of a cat slapping a keyboard. Same people who never reviewed her documentation. Same people who thought redundancy was a personality flaw. Then, 14 minutes later, the green flickered. Then it went red. Every instance threw errors. Authentication tokens failed. Database shards spun out like drunk Beyblades. Restore hooks were called. Nothing answered. In DevOps hell, they call it a blackout cascade when one system crashes and drags all its cousins down with it like digital dominoes. The rollback job launched and found 0 restore points. None. Nada. Flatlined. Miranda didn't know it yet. She was making coffee in a battered metal percolator, watching steam curl into the forest like it was trying to warn someone. Her tent flap moved gently in the breeze. Peaceful, untouchable. But 25 miles south, back at HQ, chaos bled from every monitor. Jenkins' logs scrolled like a death rattle. The VP of Ops was unavailable for comment. The CTO was texting furiously under the boardroom table. Legal was on speakerphone, arguing about data retention compliance. Marketing was scrubbing scheduled tweets about the seamless new platform experience. And in a dusty corner of the org's Slack archive, a repo no one remembered she still had read-only access to, someone finally typed the right question. Does anyone know if Miranda hard-coded the restore hook? 3 engineers replied with question marks. Another replied, check the legacy backup flow. She might have used a manual trigger. A 4th posted, where's that repo even stored? And then silence. Miranda sat by the fire, coffee mug warming her hands. A hawk cried somewhere above the tree line. She didn't know they were looking for her, not yet, but she could feel it. Somewhere, deep in the part of her brain that mapped architecture like highways and code like prayer, she felt a glitch. Like someone trying to pick a lock she welded shut. She smiled, just a little. Let them sweat. Monday morning detonated like a gas leak. First person to cry wasn't from IT. It was someone in marketing when the analytics dashboard wouldn't load and their quarter-end report disappeared mid-presentation. Then it spread. Finance couldn't access the ledger. Product lost staging. Customer support, completely blind. At 9:03 a.m., the CEO, normally a golf at 7, arrived at 10 kind of guy, sprinted barefoot down the hallway, half a tie flapping behind him, yelling who the hell signed off on this update. Like he thought blame worked like a password reset. No one answered, because no one could. Bradley was working remotely from his lake house. Ellen Myers was in damage control mode, trying to reconstruct a backup strategy that didn't exist anymore. And IT, they were frantically clicking through internal Confluence pages, hoping for an answer that wasn't already a 404 error. By 10:17, realized no one on staff had full documentation on the legacy system. Not for the backup triggers, not for the rollback logic, not for the offsite restore sequence. There was a collective corporate shudder when someone mumbled, wasn't this Miranda's thing? And then the scavenger hunt began. HR was told to find any and all records related to Miranda Haskins. They combed her onboarding file, scanned every NDA she ever signed, every exit doc she never acknowledged. Then, like some B-movie plot twist, they found it, her emergency contact. Not a family member, not an old roommate, but a client, someone from a long-sunsetted government contract who once told her, if you ever need an out, call me. Miranda had listed them with a smirk. She knew no one would ever actually call. Until now. At 11:02 a.m., a call was placed. Not to the emergency contact, directly to her phone. The number scraped from her digital signature buried in old Slack exports. Miranda's phone, still buried under a week-old hoodie in the glove box of her Subaru, buzzed once. She didn't flinch. She was perched on a boulder, boots off, feet in a freezing creek, watching the reflection of clouds shift like code logic refactoring itself in real time. A trout darted past her ankle. She didn't move. The phone buzzed again. this time longer. She walked up the creek bank, water dripping from her calves. Opened the glove box, checked the caller ID. Caitlin, exec assistant to CEO. Miranda stared at the screen, then hit the side button and watched it go dark. The trout made more sense than most of her ex-colleagues. She opened her thermos, poured lukewarm coffee, and sipped like she wasn't the most wanted person in 3 departments. Let them squirm. Let them call. Let them learn what happens when you fire the only person who ever treated failure like a crime scene. And somewhere, behind firewalls they didn't understand, the script still waited. Locked. Untouchable. Signed, M. Haskins, Root Auth. The call came at 7:06 a.m. on Tuesday, just as Miranda was unzipping her tent and watching steam rise off the damp earth like it was exhaling with her. This time she answered, not because she felt generous, because she knew the voice on the other end wouldn't be Bradley, or HR, or some intern reading off a crisis protocol checklist. It was a man with a voice like scotch and stress, measured, heavy, afraid of its own echo. Miranda, he said, no last name, no condescension. This is Alan DeWitt. I sit on the board. She said nothing. Let the silence fill the air between them like wet cement. We're in a situation, he continued, not going to insult your intelligence by summarizing it. Another pause. Good, Miranda said evenly. I've reviewed the logs, he said. I know the restore trigger was manual. I know only you had access. She sipped her coffee. Sounds like a tough spot. He exhaled, slow, unpracticed, like someone used to commanding yachts, not begging in flip-flops on a burning deck. What would it take, he asked carefully, for you to explain how to regain access? Miranda walked away from her camp, stepped onto a ridge overlooking the valley below. Her breath fogged the air like a watermark. Well, she said, I'm no longer employed. Yes, I'm aware. So this isn't a work call, she said. It's a consulting inquiry. Alan didn't argue, didn't pivot to legalese. Just said, we've already spoken with external counsel. She raised an eyebrow. Good, she said. Then they've probably told you I didn't breach any agreements. They did. You also know, she continued, that I warned you. I wrote tickets, sent emails, documented everything. I've seen the archive, he said quietly. I also saw who closed your ticket without reading it. Miranda sat down on a mossy boulder and stretched her legs. Then I'd say we're past apologies. He didn't deny it. We're willing to compensate. I'm not interested in hush money. We're not offering that. She let that sit. Here's what I want, she said. Walk you through how to unlock the trigger. Once. Live, no screenshots, no documentation. You take notes. That's reasonable, she continued. It has to be with the full board present. I don't talk to underlings anymore. I can arrange that. And one more thing. Yes, when I'm done, you'll issue a formal press statement. Acknowledge that the system's original stability depended on my architecture. Full credit, public, no edits, a long pause, just wind and silence. Then, understood, Miranda smiled for the first time in 3 days. Then schedule the call, Mr. DeWitt, she said. But do it soon. Every minute you're offline is another lawsuit waiting to hatch. And she ended the call. Just like that, not begging, not explaining, no longer small. Just a former technician sitting on a hill, drinking burnt coffee, watching the company that fired her scramble to rebuild a kingdom from ashes, one root key at a time. Video call launched at 3:00 p.m. sharp. Sharp like a guillotine. 12 little rectangles blinked to life on Miranda's cracked iPad, propped up against a thermos on the motel desk. She'd showered, pulled her hair back, and worn a plain black t-shirt, no makeup, no apologies. The grainy wallpaper behind her made it look like she was calling in from a Cold War fallout shelter. Fitting. Top row, board members, pinstriped and pale. Bottom row, CTO sweating through a collar he probably ironed twice. Middle square, the CEO pretending calm but blinking too often. And there, dead center, Bradley, the human PowerPoint. Arms crossed, jaw tight, probably praying the Wi-Fi cut out before she spoke. It didn't. Thanks for making time, Miranda said, her voice low and flat, slicing through the corporate tension like piano wire. Let's begin. She shared her screen. Opened the original backup flow, version from January 2023. What you're looking at is the core restoration chain. Trigger point here, she zoomed in, highlighting a node labeled Manual Trigger M Signature. This isn't just a name, it's a security flag. SHA 250, 6 encrypted. My digital signature required to decrypt and launch the backup. A pause. No one blinked. If you'd read the onboarding docs I submitted in April last year, know this was designed after our finance cluster nearly got bricked by that BitLocker exploit. You remember that, right? A few heads nodded sheepish. One board member cleared his throat like he was about to apologize, then wisely didn't. Bradley leaned in. Well, look, I'm not sure that kind of system architecture was appropriately. She cut him off. You mean documented? He nodded, too eager. Miranda smiled. Ice cold. Opened a zipped archive from her desktop labeled Redundant DOC Backups. Here are the full logs, PDFs, annotated screenshots, time-stamped walkthroughs. I sent these to Ellen twice, and to you, she looked directly at Bradley on June 6th. You marked the email as read and never replied. She clicked again. Here's a Slack export showing IT deleting my messages from the infra channel after I flagged the restore flow was being bypassed. More silence. Then came the fatal click. She opened the deployment log from the day the update was pushed. No backup call was made, no trigger activated, and your brilliant intern deployed a utility I deprecated 9 months ago because it wiped rollback pointers by default. I warned you. I submitted a ticket. You closed it in under 20 minutes. Status, not reproducible. The CEO leaned forward. Why? Why didn't anyone know this? Miranda tilted her head. I did, just didn't care until it broke. The board chair rubbed his temples. And this? Trigger. It only works with your authorization? Yes, because that was the point. To make sure it couldn't be misused. Can we regain access without you? No, but I'm here and I'm talking, which is more than I owed you. Bradley finally broke. This isn't fair. You're treating this like sabotage. I didn't sabotage anything, Miranda said, calm as cyanide. Just let your confidence run unsupervised. The board fell into a thick, choking silence. Outside her window, a neon vacancy sign flickered. Inside, Miranda watched them all squirm, men in suits trying to process that the quiet woman they underpaid, overlooked, and discarded like tech debt, now held the only map out of the burning maze they built with their own smug hands. And she wasn't even done. The offer came 5 minutes after the call ended. Desperate follow-up email, this time from the CEO himself. Subject line in all caps like that would somehow make it urgent enough to matter now. Let's talk about next steps. They didn't even try to hide the flattery. You're invaluable. This has opened our eyes. We'd love to have you back. Back. As if she'd just stepped out for a smoke break and not been fired, erased, replaced with a glorified intern, publicly humiliated by a guy who thought root access was a type of massage therapy. She didn't respond right away. Let M marinate. The next morning they called. This time the CEO's voice was syrupy with fear. We're prepared to reinstate your position, he said, with back pay. Whatever you need, Miranda laughed. A short, bright, genuine laugh. It startled him. She let the silence hang a beat too long. I don't want my job back, she said. That job's dead. Buried it when you let a protein shake in sneakers override 6 years of stability. Then what do you want? She didn't hesitate. Consultant status, triple rate. No meetings unless I call them. No edits to my architecture. I build the new system my way with full root. You want stability, you get out of my way. He didn't argue. He was smart enough not to. And one more thing, she added. Public statement. Signed by the board. Acknowledge my original system. That it worked until you broke it. You'll thank me by name. Another pause. Then, Dunn, O, and Bradley. Gone. I want confirmation in writing. She heard the CEO exhale like someone setting down a gun. You'll have it within the hour. And she did. 2 days later, Miranda returned, not through the back door, not under escort, but through the front lobby, where the receptionist gave her a badge that didn't say engineer this time. It said infrastructure strategy lead, external consultant. The entire walk from the entrance to the executive floor was silent. People turned, whispered. A few actually stood. One of the newer engineers gave her a salute like she was walking into battle. But there was no cube waiting, no terminal in a shared pod, no sad desk plant curled under bad lighting. Instead, a new meeting room. Glass-walled, frosted edges, name glowing on the tablet outside the door. Miranda Haskins' session in progress. Inside, she opened her laptop, logged into the restored core, and saw her signature, manual trigger M signature, sitting exactly where it always had been. Untouched. She didn't speak. She didn't smile. She just pulled up a terminal, typed a single command, and watched the systems breathe again. No drama, no applause, just the sound of a company exhaling through architecture it no longer deserved, but desperately needed. And when she finally stood to leave hours later, the building didn't feel like it owned her anymore. It felt like it owed her. Forever. This story is a brutal reminder that the quiet folks behind the scenes, the ones who don't boast in meetings or suck up to execs, often hold the keys to everything. You can't automate respect and firing people without understanding what they actually do. That's not just careless, it's corporate suicide. You're the real stars of the corporate jungle. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe, or I'll flick the switch on your old cubicle memories.